So I got to give a hand to progressives. I got to acknowledge their I guess a bit of respect for them and how they can take organizations and they can take control of them and kind of hide behind this barrier of civil rights until it's something they don't like, and then their hypocrisy really shows. So you have this organization here known as The Center. It is the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Community Center. Now, that seems like a good idea. Like, activism for civil rights? Sure, I'm in favor of that. An organization devoted to civil rights? I am in favor of that. I am for all of these things. This organization sounds pretty good. Like, sure, I mean, that's the thing. I'm not part of the LGBT community at all. But it's like, sure, if they want to create a community center, if they want to do activism like that, I am all for it. But here's where the issue is. It is this center statement on event cancellation. Whenever it comes to anything even remotely non-progressive, that's when they have to shut it down. That's when it becomes an issue. As soon as it isn't part of, like, the progressive agenda, which is not civil rights, there are a few civil rights things that overlap there, but whenever it requires any kind of fairness on their part, like free speech, or when it ever comes to something like free speech, that is where they show their hypocrisy. And we'll see right here, this is their statement on event cancellation. If you are unaware, there was a hashtag walkaway event scheduled on March 28th at the center. It was specifically an LGBT walkaway event. It was pretty much to say, like, they got a bunch of it was for LGBT people to attend. Like, the speakers, there were, I think, 4 speakers. They were all LGBT. They were people that were like, yes, I am walking away. They are part of the walkaway movement. The walkaway movement essentially says, yes, we are leaving the left wing. Now, I've seen most people will say, like, the walkaway movement means leave the left and come to the right. But I've even seen people say, like, no, the walkaway movement is leave the left. It's not even necessarily come to the right. It's at the very least leave the left. Become a centrist. Become an independent. Sure, we recommend you come to the right. But sure, like, if you want to just leave the left, that's fine with us. And that's the whole point of the movement, is to say, pretty much, it's a minority movement, to say if you are LGBT, if you are like black or Hispanic or anything, like, if you feel that you've been like tokenized and used by the left, look at what the left has done to you, come over to our side. That's essentially what they're saying. It's time to, like, leave these people that don't respect you at all. You're a political tool to them. That's what the walkaway movement is. And now that's the whole point of the, it was an organization that was pro-LGBT in essence. It was a freedom of diversity thing. It was hey, you don't have to be progressive. You can be whatever political ideology you want. It's just like, you don't have to be progressive just because you're LGBT. That's essentially what it was saying. But this is the statement put out by the LGBT Community Center. Upon further review and consideration, the speech has canceled the center has canceled the March 28th walkaway event. We strongly oppose censorship and fully stand by our commitment to free speech. So what they're saying is they're opposed to censorship and they're committed to free speech, is what they say. And not only are they committed, they stand by their commitment. But as our space use policy states, we reserve the right to cancel any event that promotes discriminatory speech or bigotry. Again, what does that mean? Discriminatory speech or bigotry negatively impacts other groups or individuals that use the center, or conflicts with or interferes with center-sponsored or produced programming. So again, it has become clear that this event would violate all of these important policies. I'm not sure how it interferes with the last one, but what they're essentially saying is, it's kind of the sense of, you have to agree with the actual, like, far-left ideology here. And essentially, if you host an event that is pro-LGBT, but if you are not the pro-LGBTQI, like, if you're someone that thinks, okay, like, if you've thought in the past that maybe that maybe there aren't 76 genders, if you're someone that thinks there are 2 genders, that is like, and that's the weird thing, because there are 2 genders, it's such a bland term. Like, that got old years ago. Like, saying that is not offensive anymore. Like, there are 2 genders, because pretty much everyone, I think, most people pretty much agree that there are only 2 genders. Now, again, there were some, it just seems that the select few that don't agree with that are pretty radical. Like, they're pretty radical, and they're pretty loud, and they've got positions of power, so they've got a lot of influence, a lot bigger than is proportionate to their group. But whenever I see someone say, like, oh, look how edgy I am, there are 2 genders, it's like, is that really a radical thing to say? But then you have organizations like this who are like, well, we're canceling your event because you don't think there's more than 2 genders. It's like, I mean, they even call themselves the LGBT, like, what do they call themselves? The Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Community Center. Notice how that's all they say. They didn't say anything about non-binary. They didn't say anything about any of these other types of genders. So I do have to wonder if maybe they're being incredibly, they're not being even remotely inclusive, the fact that they limit their name to that. I have to wonder. Jeez, get out. This thing needs to go away. Okay, there we go. But yes, they're saying like, oh, apparently these people in the past have said there aren't 76 genders, therefore they are hateful, therefore they are bigots. And it's like, no, you morons. They promote discriminatory speech. No. In recent days, we have learned that certain of the panelists, is that English? I don't think it is, certain of the panelists announced for this event have made repeated, well-documented past statements that violate our mission, values, and the spirit of inclusiveness for all individuals and identities that is core to our work and who we are. Our space is a place of safety and refuge for those most vulnerable among us, and we will do everything in our power to protect that. Permitting this event to proceed would make many of our community members feel unsafe and, among other things, interfere with their ability to participate in other center programming. Now, this is the thing. It would make many community members feel unsafe. Okay, why? Why? It would make them feel unsafe. Okay, why? Like, is it their fault? Are they misunderstanding the situation? Or will it make them unsafe? See, they say it would make many of our community members feel unsafe. Well, again, all I care about is, would it be unsafe for these community members? Yes or no? I don't care how they feel. Would it make them unsafe? And the answer is flat out to anyone that has like any like obvious integrity at all. No. Like, no, this is not even remotely unsafe for anyone. Or rather, I could say it would be unsafe for the people attending because, again, like you see these violent hate mobs often go after them. And imagine, like, again, they even point out, I imagine, like, being, like, transgender, like, being gay nowadays, I can't imagine it's that bad of a thing compared to, like, 10, 20 years ago. But honestly, when it comes to, like, someone that's transgender, I understand, like, that's gotta suck. I think that's gotta be a pretty awful life. That's gotta be, a pretty messed up life in the sense of you rolled the dice and you didn't get a good result, and things, for the most part, the progressives will bow down to you, but you have you got to deal with some pretty awful stuff, I think. So I got to say that if you're not only that, but you're also right wing in the sense that you're like, yeah, and you're also right wing, well then you've got an issue because you don't really have an alliance, you don't really have any friends in the like progressive LGBT community. You don't really have any friends because as soon as you announce that you're right wing, it's like, oh, you are literally Hitler. And I can't say that from experience, but I know people who have pretty much experienced something along those lines, and that sucks. That's awful. That's I feel bad for that. And it's interesting how it's like, oh, we as soon as you have a diversity of viewpoints, and they're not even far right, they're not even radicals, they're not calling for violence, they're not threatening anyone, they're not saying anything radical, and yet they're like, oh, apparently it's too radical for the center. So I have to wonder how inclusive this organization is, if they're really going to take a bunch of non-violent people with non-violent opinions and cancel their event because it's apparently a problem. We extend our deep appreciation and thanks to the community members that have reached out and brought this important information to our attention, and we deeply regret the hurt and harm this booking has caused. We take our responsibility as a place of organizing and activism very seriously, and that means we have and will continue to host events that are controversial. Again, like, is walk away controversial? I mean, I suppose it's controversial, but is it controversial that they should be allowed to speak? Is it controversial that they're horrible people, like evil people? I don't think it's that controversial. I mean, to say that they're horrible, evil people, like, I think anyone that is like center left, moderate left, I think can look at walk away and say, okay, I disagree with their views, but they're not terrible people. They're not awful, evil people. They're not bigots or anything, but yeah, it seems like a select minority of people, which happens to either run the center or, as it's said, like, it's not necessarily the center that made the decision. There was a lot of pressure from certain activists, some very far left activists that deplatformed these people. Nothing more intrusive than deplatforming an LGBT organization or an LGBT like event. That's nuts. Whatever happened to LGBT representation? So, I guess not. We take our responsibility as a place of organizing and activism very seriously, and that means we have and will continue to host events that are, I already read that, I'm sorry. And as a nonpartisan organization, we also understand that our community members hold differing political views. And you can't call yourself nonpartisan while canceling Walk Away, honestly. Like, it bugs me that, like, okay, if a bunch of legitimate neo-Nazis, like a bunch of legitimate LGBT neo-Nazis, just imagine that. Like, there's got to be a real contradiction in your head if you're an LGBT neo-Nazi. But imagine if those people were to host an event. Okay, I disagree. I would still kind of disagree with deplatforming them. But if they're legitimate neo-Nazis, it's like, sure, there's going to be some calls for violence somewhere. There's going to be some pretty awful stuff there. And I don't know if I necessarily feel comfortable hosting them, but also I do have a dedication for free speech, so as long as the event would be safe and nobody would get hurt, I'd personally go through with it. But I can at least understand saying, like, okay, these people are extreme radicals and we don't want to host them for that reason. They're extreme radicals. Okay, I get that. But you can't call yourself a nonpartisan organization and then say you oppose an LGBT walk away event. Walk away is not far right. It's not even remotely it's right wing. It's center right. It's moderate. The entire purpose of the movement is just to say, come to the right. It's better than the left. All that requires is to be slightly right of center. That's where the opinion is. Imagine saying that come to the right instead of the left is a controversial opinion. And again, even then, I've seen walk away people that just say, don't go to the left. Like, just leave the left. You don't have to come to the right, but just leave the left. I've seen people say that. And do they forget that, like, the guy that started the walk away movement, or the co-founder, or whatever, Brandon something, I'll show you in a minute something that he said. Do they forget that he's gay? He's part of the LGBT community, and the right wing seems to be embracing him and his movement. They don't seem to have an issue with the fact that he's gay. Like, I don't know anyone on the right that has an issue with that. Occasionally you find morons on the internet that think he's an evil person, but again, they're just like morons on the internet. They're like the flat earthers. No one pays any attention to them because they're so tiny and so insignificant. But yeah, it just, you can't call yourself nonpartisan. Like, at least be honest. That's the thing. At least be honest that you are not just leaning to the left, but you are quite, like, at the very least, moderate left. At that point. Or at the very least, if you are a nonpartisan organization, I suppose you could say you're a nonpartisan organization, but you would then also have to say you have no spine because you gave in to the far left activists trying to deplatform, again, may I repeat, an LGBT organization. This bugs me. We support and encourage open dialogue around those views, but not when it interferes with our operations and programming or threatens the well-being of our community. Again, where's the threat? Like, threatens the well-being of our community. Where's the threat? That's the thing. Like, it's opinion. I just finished reading. The Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff. I will do a review on that book later. If you want to subscribe, you'll get that notification. It'll be a 3-minute review. I believe number 68. I'm getting really up there. But again, what they point out then there is this whole idea of, like, catastrophizing or catastrophizing. I can't think of how to actually pronounce that word. Catastrophizing or something like that. But the point is to say they take something like speech is violence, a phrase like that. They take something, they just blow it out of proportion. They're like, speech is suddenly violence. Like, speech is literal harm because someone, and it is true, like, the science does show that you actually do kind of suffer harm from speech that has an actual effect on your body when you hear something that is really upsetting, like an insult that does have an effect on your body. But to say that it is anywhere even remotely close to violence in the sense of physical harm, no, screw you. Like, when we think of violence, we think of, like, trauma. We think of physical trauma. I know there is such thing as emotional or mental trauma. We think of physical trauma, like a force of hand-to-hand combat, someone getting hit with something, someone getting hurt and injured in a mechanical way, not just an emotional way. Like, to imagine using injury as as an emotional word. I don't get it. But yeah, the idea that, like, by going and saying certain views and that is going to that's threatening the well-being of your community, it's like, okay, if that's threatening the well-being of your community, then get your community to see some therapists. And if it's not working, get them to see better therapists. Like, dear God. It is absolutely awful, and if anything, the center is contributing to the harm of this well-being, to the harm of this community. They are harming the well-being of this community by saying, like, oh my God, someone has something that is even remotely center-right. Someone has an opinion that isn't even far-right. It's just moderate-right. Oh God, we got to shut them down. Imagine thinking that and thinking you have any integrity at all. The Center is committed to a comprehensive, transparent review of the process that led to this booking and how we can further improve our space and use procedures and decision-making. We understand that the work to heal and rebuild trust begins today. I can't heal. Who was hurt? Rebuild trust. How? God, this bugs me. They blow something so, like, it's what, like, when they talk about white privilege, all I can do is look at them and say, you're the most privileged person to ever live if you are complaining about speech. It's like the rate of child labor in 1890, which is, just think, 120 years ago, or 130 years ago, 1890, The rate of child labor was like 30%. 1900, it was like 16%, I think. Am I right? Might be getting those numbers a little bit off, but we're pretty high. Like, we had child labor just 120, 130 years ago. We had a Great Depression after that. And we had a Great Depression last quite a bit. We had a World War, and then we had a Second World War. I know we had a World War, then Depression, then a Second World War. Then we had even more wars, and we had all this horrible stuff, and it's like you're getting complained about. You're getting upset with words. That's it. There's a good phrase. I can't remember what it was. Like, there's a good saying. It's something like, they pick one time period, and it's like, oh no, I'm dying of polio. Another word, oh no, I have to work in a coal mine. And then another time, and it was like, what was it? It's like, oh no, I've been drafted into a war. And then today, I heard a word I didn't like. It's like, jeez. That's, it's honestly, the reason I'm so upset by this is just after reading The Coddling of the American Mind, just seeing the damage that this kind of thinking does. And it's like, come on, people. Like, what is wrong with you? But this is Brandon Straka, who I believe is the co-founder of the organization. Or at least, like, he's a big, like, he's the guy of the walk away movement. Here we go. Still not a phone call, not an email, nothing from the LGBT Center. They took our payment, they took our signed contract, told me we are good to go. Then I find out they canceled my event via their announcement on Twitter, calling us a hate group. And now again, they still haven't replied as far as I can tell. So here's the thing. It's like, if you want to have, again, I have to point out to just the total lack of integrity here. The fact that there is no defense for how they've acted. Like, and I am someone that says don't attribute to malice, which you can attribute to stupidity. I always give people the benefit of the doubt. And the reason I always give people the benefit of the doubt is so I can't be one of those people that are like, yeah, maybe I went too hard on you. Maybe I overreacted. Fine. I'm not one of those people at all. I go really easy on people. So people can see that, like, I am giving them as much of a chance to be nice and be polite and to understand and listen as possible. I am giving, and that way if they ever screw me or it turns out that they're a bad person, I can say, you know what? I had a very high standard and they broke it. And now I can say with good confidence that, yeah, these people aren't to be trusted. Because I don't want to do that with someone that, like, I'm not going to be like, oh, this person has a different opinion, they're bad. I'm not going to do that. I have to hold a very high standard for saying someone, like, lacks integrity or is immoral, because that's some pretty awful things to say. Like, if someone said I lacked integrity or if someone said I was immoral, I would take great offense to that. Because it's like, dang, like, you just said this awful stuff about me and you have no evidence. I am confident here. I can say that the center lacks integrity. They're, like, I don't even know if I call them immoral. I guess the act here was rather immoral because of these reasons. Because of the reasons as listed out by Brandon Straka right here. One, they canceled the event. They already had a contract good to go. And then they canceled the contract, which means it's like, well, there's where you broke the trust. Like, someone signs a contract with you and then you just back out. That's not very nice. But then it gets worse because they took our payment. And, like, okay, they took your payment. Is he going to get the payment back? Like, what's going to happen? As far as I know, this event was free for the people, which means it must have cost a lot of money to host. And may I also point out, they have not contacted this dude. They have not even said, hey, sorry. Like, they don't even, it's all like, it's kind of like a backstab, honestly. They didn't even have the integrity to say, like, hey, dude, I'm very sorry. Like, we don't feel comfortable with this. Like, we have an issue with hosting this event, so we're going to have to cancel. Like, I'm genuinely sorry. We have an issue with you, and we're very sorry, but it's just something we can't go forward with. At the very least, even if they just gave some sort of, like, apology or was like some sorry for the inconvenience, like let the guy know that his event is being canceled. Don't let him find out through Twitter or an announcement or that. Like, you personally email the dude. Be polite. Don't be a jerk. And, yeah, they didn't even contact the dude. It's like, well, there's the lack of integrity right there. You didn't even contact the dude you made a contract with. It's kind of like if I'm trying to think it, like, just imagine if I agreed to go somewhere with someone. Like, imagine, like, I met a friend, or I'm with a friend, and we're like, okay, let's go somewhere this weekend. Like, okay, Saturday morning, let's go there. I say that. And then Friday night, the guy that I promised to go with, he finds out from his friend that I'm doing something else that day. And it's like, well, dude, like, it wouldn't have been an issue if you had to cancel, but the fact that you canceled and then didn't tell me, it's like, there's the issue. It's so much worse. Just think about that. Like, imagine how upset you'd be if someone canceled and they said, okay, I'm sorry, I have to cancel. And you're like, okay, no big deal. Like, I wish you wouldn't, but okay, no big deal. But then imagine how much worse it is if they don't even tell you. Like, they don't even have the not the courage or the integrity. They don't have the honesty to go to someone and say, we are canceling your event, we're sorry. Or they don't even have to say they're sorry. They just have to say, we're canceling your event. Still wouldn't like it, but at least to say it is it gives you, like, shows you have a little bit of respect for other people. But yeah, they haven't even that's the worst part, in my opinion, that they don't even contact it. And this has happened before with many organizations. Scarborough Spa was one. Patreon's another one. Like, they'll just cancel contracts and they won't even tell people. They'll be like, hey, they'll find out on Twitter eventually. Or they'll find out next time they check. Stuff like that. It's awful. And then the last thing I had to show you, there's not much to it, but there was a petition signed to get the walkaway movement deplatformed. Basically, and that's what, like, that was the pressure that this organization gave into. And this is there was a petition, and that was the petition was the pressure, and the petition linked to this Google Doc, which is a link of supposedly some transphobic things, some awful things. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say about this. I'm just going to go through a few things here to see what she means, just so you're not hanging on if you're not interested in this stuff. This is one I'm just going to scan through a few of these things I did earlier, and it's some pretty ridiculous stuff. Now we're just going to scan through here and notice, like, I don't understand. Notice how what happened here was they took every single offensive thing that they said was a reason to not go through with this, and they put it there. So, because, like, if someone says an offensive thing, or if you think someone is awful, right, and you want to prove that someone's awful, you're not going to list 8,000 examples where 100 of those reinforce your point and the rest are just junk. You're going to list the 100. Like, you're only going to list the ones that argue your point. So notice how every single one of these they think validates their own point. But the first thing is just the poster for the event. It had Mike Harlow, Rob Smith, Blair White, and Brandon Straka. Brandon Straka was the Walkaway founder that we just referenced. Blair White, good channel. I like her channel. Rob Smith, I never heard of, to be honest. Iraq War veteran, that's interesting. And Mike Harlow, another writer. But yeah, like, all of these people are LGBT, and it's going to be like a neat thing. Like, I don't see how anyone could have a problem with this, but that was the thing. So what they did was they went through each of them to show some offensive stuff. So first thing, Brandon Straka, simple, transgender is real. I love transgender people and I'm a big supporter and advocate for this community, and there are many transgender conservatives. Trans, gender fluid, genderqueer, non-binary, it's not real. A co-opting of legit LGBT struggle and movement, completely political leftist crap. Now, I am of the opinion that I can see why progressives might be upset about that, but I can understand. I agree with this dude. I agree with Brandon Straka here. Like, what's wrong with that opinion? Because the thing I've noticed where, like, I was back then, like, before I even knew anyone that was, like, transgender, even heard of anyone that was like that, other than, like, Caitlyn Jenner, I guess, I wasn't really a fan of it. Like, okay, this is some weird stuff. And it was interesting. Blair White, I think it was her, actually. I think it was Blair White, actually did a video or something. Somewhere I found this information. I think it was her. Put out the science behind it. Like, they actually said, okay, here's the science. Here we're not just going to say, like, listen to us and accept us or you're a bigot. They were like, okay, here's the science behind it. Here's why we believe this is a thing. And it was essentially what they said was, hey, like, you can look at a brain and you can look at a human brain and you can find out if it's male or female, because male and females have different brain structures. You can see how, like, you can look at a brain and just using brain scans, you can tell if that person's male or female based on the brain structure. Well, what they found was that you would take someone that is a biologically male, but believes they're actually a woman, that, like, they believe they're a transgender woman. Biologically male, wants to be a woman. Well, they found that with at least with the study, a lot of these people, I don't know. Again, I don't know if it was everyone, but at least they found that, interestingly enough, a lot of these people that because I do think there is such thing as transgenders, the people that just kind of go with it because they want to get noticed. I do think that's a thing, but it seems that when they scanned the people, they found that, oh, there is such thing as a biological male with a brain that is female, essentially, that is more female than male. And I think really what happens is it's just, I think that's just a screwed up mutation, honestly. Like, I think that's just what happens. It doesn't seem that abnormal, as we can see with, for example, I'm trying to think of, like, we can see where we have, like, tomboys, for example, women that are typically masculine. We can say that, okay, in that sense, like, it's not normal for women to be that masculine, but in this case, like, there was some kind of mutation or something in the womb, something kind of happened that made them essentially to be a bit more masculine. And I think the science seems to suggest that it is possible to keep going to the point where they're so masculine that, if anything, that a woman might actually feel more like a man because they're so masculine. And then the same thing vice versa, I guess. Like, you can have women that are, or you can have men that just happen to be so feminine that they come across more as a woman than a man. I'm assuming that's the logic behind it, but the science does seem to be legit in that sense, and I really respected that. I thought that was nice that they were able to, like, show me science. They were able to show me Because I am libertarian in the sense of it's like, do whatever you want, just don't ask me to pay for it, don't ask me to, like, whatever. If you want to do that, fine. But I appreciated that they actually took the time to show the science behind it. It wasn't, here's my argument. It wasn't, like, my point here, whether you agree with what I just said or not, my whole point here is at least they respected, there are, like, trans people out there that are at least respectful enough to say, here's the science. Like, here's the evidence behind it, not just do what I say or you're a bigot kind of thing. Which is where I think the leftists really hurt themselves. Because honestly, a lot of the right-wingers I know that really don't like the trans community, it's not necessarily because they're trans. It's more because when they think trans, they think like radical leftism. And there is a correlation there. So it's like, I think the radical leftism really hurt them. I think that the fact that they clung to that so strongly is what ruined it. Anyway, I got incredibly sidetracked. But I think this statement I pretty much agree with, because the gender fluid, gender queer, non-binary stuff, they don't really seem to provide any real evidence for it. They just seem to be like, yeah, agree with this or you're a horrible person. And I don't see any evidence. It's like, prove evidence, fine. It's your job to prove this stuff. This has become politicized and co-opted by the left, who now want to push the idea that no gender, third gender, multiple simultaneous genders, etc. are a reality, and that the rest of us should be forced to go along with this and the ridiculous no language they've invented. To control people with this idea and give themselves more leverage to label others bigots for objecting. I know plenty of transgender people who resent the co-opting of their experience by leftists abusing this concept with their new definition of trans. It's like, yeah, oddly enough, there are right-wing trans people that are incredibly offended by the 80 different genders thing. So it's like, okay, both sides are offended. Where do you go from here? Like, if both sides are offended, checkmate. Where do you go from there? You have to provide something else, like evidence for your view. The next thing they threw up was, oh, look, Brandon Straka is terrible because Milo has a walk away shirt. Milo's gay. He's also Jewish. Yeah, and he's in an interracial marriage. So it's like, again, the fact that they have a problem with Milo, it's like, well, again, they tend to say that, like, oh, it's the radical leftist view tends to be that it's like, oh, it's your identity. It is the fact that you are gay or trans or whatever that makes you right. And then it's like, oh, as soon as Milo comes along, not really, no. Again, more things like, oh, Brandon Straka is taking pictures with Milo, therefore he's a bigot. Brandon Straka, POTUS is not to blame for the alleged spike in hate crimes. The most ominous hate group in America is Antifa, and they are heralded by the left. POTUS isn't the one dog whistling to Antifa. The liberal media is. I demand that the left address the hate group they've created. Okay. Why is that controversial? Why is that awful? Here's what I actually kind of disagree with. White supremacy is not on the rise in America. Neither is homophobia, neither is sexism, neither is xenophobia. I think white supremacy and xenophobia are on the rise on the right. But again, it's kind of like on the rise from 1% to 2% or something. Like, it's such a small... I don't think they're... I think they have the potential to become a threat, but at the moment I'm not really concerned about them. I don't think they're that much of a threat, all things considering. I think if I have to face like radical Islam in the far left, I think they're much bigger threats than white supremacy, the thing. Like, and I think if anything, if you defeat the far left, white supremacy will go away, because as far as I can tell, a lot of the white supremacists I seem like the rise in white supremacy seems to be as a backlash from the far left, that they're like, okay, well, if the far left is going to do this, we have to defend ourselves. So it's like you get rid of one and you get rid of the other. I'm just going to scroll through a lot of these. Like, again, it's just all non-binary isn't real. How offensive. It's a white privilege is negligible. They thought to include this as something incredibly offensive. Again, what does white privilege isn't real have to do with the LGBT community? Please explain. Oh, look. Brandon Straka at Women's March Mob. Most don't really know why they're here. Why is that offensive? Brandon Straka was on the Alex Jones show. Good for him. I actually have a lot of respect for me, honestly, like, my respect for people goes up if they go on the Alex Jones show, because they know that if you go on the Alex Jones show, that's going to be a problem. Like, that's a bad look for a lot of people. I get that. If you appear on Alex Jones, that makes you look pretty crazy. And the fact that people go on there, and regardless of that, I think is like a decent thing of respect, is to say, like, okay, I'm going to talk to these people. I'm not going to be pressured. I think that's fine. Then they go to Rob Smith. A good gay in 2018 must diffuse his masculinity at all costs, never question a trans person ever, ignore the one thing all countries where being gay is punishable by death have in common, all reasons why I'm a very bad gay. Why is this why is this anti-LGBT? I'm confused. And this is the whole thing. Like, it's all just rather stuff that I don't see why is so offensive. What was that right there? I don't support a ban on transgender military service, but pretending any trans person at any stage of transition can do any job in the military isn't realistic. I know enough about the military and trans issues to know it isn't a simple conversation. I agree with that. I fail to see how that's any way offensive. It's not even a radical view. It's kind of like that's a rather centrist view. Like, that's a rather, I don't see the issue. And then here's Blair White, where pretty much everything that I noticed that she picked here was satire. It was jokes. It was humor. And they're like, oh my God, this horrible thing. When the left sends their trannies, they're not sending their best. And it's like, oh, like, she said the word tranny, but she is one, so that seems to be the thing. She at least has the card to say it. As far as I thought that's how they worked. Like, if you are part of that community, you're allowed to, like, if there's a word that hurts you, that insults you, I'm pretty sure you're allowed to say it. As far as I know. Was talking about the wage gap in my sociology class. Can you guess what side is being pushed on the class? How is that anti-LGBT? But yes, I understand. Oh, here's the best parts. They connected her to the, oh my God, look, she's far right. Look at all those okay signs. Oh my God, look at all the okay signs. Definitely far right because of the okay signs. Oh, there are only two genders. How controversial. Yeah, but you get the point. You pretty much get the point. That's all I'm going to say. Because the rest of this is just me scrolling through stuff that I skimmed through. And you get the point. That this is really what this is. It's just absolute nonsense. But, and it just keeps going on. Notice I'm only about halfway done here. It just keeps going. There is so much stuff that they took the time to go through. And it doesn't make it. I don't get it. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section. I thought this was pretty ridiculous. Like the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Did I already say that? I don't know. I keep repeating it because, again, let me know. I want to know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Was there something, even if it's something a little bit that I said that you disagree with, let me know what you think about it. I'm curious to know. Curious to to read your replies. If you see something I said wrong and you want to convince me, leave a comment and I'll read it. I do read every comment. I don't always get the time to reply to them all. In fact, I don't reply to most of them just because I glance at it and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm in the middle of something while I glance at it and then I forget about it. But I forget to really reply or respond or anything. But yeah, I appreciate all this stuff. It just keeps going. It just keeps going. And there we go. We're finally at the end. Should I report abuse? I mean, they're pretty much spreading hate. They're trying to go after these people here. Are they abusing people here? I don't know. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and thanks for watching.